Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Assessment and Accountability December webinar. I'm Kevin Whitman. I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability. I wanted to do a few quick housekeeping notes. If you have any questions, please submit them in the questions box. The PowerPoint slides that we have today are available to you as a document if you go to the handout section. And as always, we recorded the presentation and we will post it for you if you want to access it later, and that normally takes around 10 days. Also wanted to make a few quick announcements. So it says right here, the fall 2020 IRI results are posted. I was hopeful that would be true by the time this webinar started. It should be later today. So the official fall IRI results will be posted at some point today, but they're not quite there yet. So they will be up soon, and they're going to be available at the URL that you have in the slide. As always, this will be the file that has the district and school level results, and you can see the results for different student groups and grades. So it'll look just like last year's, but for this year's data. If you have any questions, always reach out to us. Another important announcement I wanted to make is that the ISAT summative window has been extended. We wanted to provide a little additional flexibility for folks, knowing that it's obviously an unusual year. So the new dates for our summative window is going to be March 15th through May 28th. And then we also have a new summative paper window. And those dates are going to be April 5th through May 21st. I unfortunately have to go to another meeting, so I'm sorry to have to sign off to everyone. Taylor is going to be the captain of the ship today, moving this along. If you have any questions for me on anything, always feel free to email me or give me a call. And look forward to catching up with everyone later. But I think Paul is up next, so I'll turn it over to him.
Good morning, Idaho. This is Paul Kleinert, your NAEP State Coordinator. As you may have already heard, NAEP has been postponed until next spring, where NCES, the National Center for Education Statistics, will do what it can to have a full state NAEP year. What this means for schools is that just like this year would have been, it will be a large sample of schools where we will get state-level results at the end of the year. You may remember that this year was actually a smaller sample and had fewer students and even fewer schools selected. This was in response to the pandemic. The resampling for next year will be a full sampling, so all the schools that were selected this year are likely to be selected again, plus more schools to ensure an accurate representation of students in Idaho. This new sampling will be based on next school year to get the best possible snapshot in time of Idaho students. When NCES selects schools, they select based on where certain demographics of students are in Idaho in the most recent EdFacts submission. Also, schools selected this year aren't finished yet. NCES created a questionnaire this year to explore the impacts of the pandemic on schools nationally. Teachers and leadership in selected schools will be asked to provide local details for this questionnaire. These details can be used to inform future decision-making about assessment and accountability nationally and could shape national testing in the future. I do not yet have details about how this questionnaire will be distributed. As the time comes, I will contact schools who were selected for NAEP 2021. Please contact me with any thoughts or questions.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is Andrew Bennett, your English Language Proficiency Assessment Coordinator. And first, I wanted to say that your dedication to student success in this uncertain time is invaluable, and we at the department appreciate all the work that you do to make our future brighter, so thank you. So the WIDA pre-ID file was successfully uploaded to the Data Recognition Corporation in mid-November. Districts will be able to view their student rosters and test sessions within WIDA AMS starting on December 29th, 2020. So mark your calendars for that. New Ls enrolled within your district after November 20th, 2020 will need to be added to your district's student roster and be assigned to a test session prior to being tested. All right, the 2020-2021 access test will be like no other. So preparing for the test window now will reduce hiccups during the test window. A best practices document was created to assist district test coordinators in preparing for the unique environment the access test will be administered in. The document provides essential questions district test coordinators should be considering when scheduling and administering access in the new year. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me, and please make sure you check that out. So the 2020-2021 is an Access recertification year. Test administrators, district test coordinators, school test coordinators, and other district personnel who will be handling secure test materials will need to be recertified this year. District test coordinators are encouraged to keep copies of each test administrator's training records on site to ensure that test administrators have reviewed their responsibilities before, during, and after testing. And the district test coordinators can verify test administrator recertification via the account management and training status tile located within the WIDA secure portal. Test administrators must be certified for the access mode and grade level cluster they will be administering this year. Mark your calendars because access materials are scheduled to be delivered between January 14th and January 18th, 2021, which is in just about a month. The yellow DRC boxes of test materials will need to be signed for at the time of their delivery. It is encouraged to inventory the test materials to verify that all the materials on the packing list are accounted for. District test coordinators can reference the district and school test coordinator manual for more guidance on how to best approach the inventory process. And the link is here in the slide. Okay, if districts require additional materials over the course of testing, the overage testing materials provided in the initial materials shipment should be exhausted before making an additional materials order. Districts should only need to make one additional materials order during the 2021 access window, and additional material orders can be placed in WIDA AMS under the materials header once the additional materials ordering window opens, which is on January 15th through March 17th, 2021. District test coordinators should be collaborating with their district IT coordinators to confirm that the IT requirements have been met prior to the access test window opening. And resources explaining how to set up a configuration and install the required software to the testing devices can be found on the WIDA Secure Portal under the Technology Resources. Also, the Technology User Guide is a helpful resource for IT coordinators to have on hand as a reference before, during, and after testing. So check that out. The accessibility and accommodation supplement should be reviewed so that the appropriate accommodations can be assigned to the students who have a documented need on each section of the access. And accommodations can be assigned to students within WIDA AMS under the student management header. And it is the responsibility of the district to ensure that all identified Ls are tested in the new year. The access test window opens on January 25th, 2021 and closes on March 19th, 2021. Due to the extended test window, district test coordinators should be aware that this did adjust some of the dates, such as the LEA pre-data validation and the anticipated dates for that LEAs should be receiving the access test results. If you have questions about the revised dates, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And if things are adjusted at a later date, I will update you on that. The WIDA webinar series has been posted on the ELPA webpage under the Trainings tab. And below is information on the upcoming webinars through January 7th, 2021. Specific WebEx webinar links are embedded into the titles or can be found on the ELPA webpage under the Trainings tab under the webinar heading. Please join us tomorrow to review the basics of the kindergarten access tests. And at this time, I would like to open myself up to any questions that you may have.
We have a question from Dave Harrison. Has a decision been made regarding the accommodation for testing students outside of a school location? Can it be used for students who are remote, even if they are not on a 504 or IEP?
That's a great question. There are some guidance within that best practices document, so check that out. The decision has been made. In very unique circumstances, the NS accommodation can be used for students who do not have an IEP or 504 plan.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kevin Chandler, the Math and Science Assessment Coordinator here at the department. Just a few updates for science. First up, let me give you guys a heads up on two organizations that are here in the state of Idaho that are trying to improve science education. First up is the Idaho Science Teachers Association. That's a relatively new organization. and it aims to connect Idaho science teachers with innovative resources that can be used to prepare students for doing science in the 21st century. Also, the Idaho STEM Action Center, or the Idaho STEM AC, that's a really great organization that is creating a diverse, equitable, thriving ecosystem for a prosperous STEM literate Idaho. And they do that by engineering innovative opportunities for educators, students, communities, and individuals to build a competitive STEM and computer science literate workforce. I've been a part of some professional development workshops that both of these organizations have run, and they're doing some really great things here in the state of Idaho for science education. So if you haven't checked them out, be sure to do that. Okay, back to assessment. Remember, we have some science sample tests for grade 5, grade 8, and grade 11. Those available for anyone. They can log in as a guest user under a guest session to take one of those sample or training tests as many times as necessary. A TA can also start a test session for one of those sample tests. Student just logs in with their first name, EDU ID, and a test session in order to take one of those sample tests. And of course, don't forget about the answer keys that are available for the sample tests that are posted on the ISAT portal. Also want to mention our science interims. We have those available this school year as well. Those can be administered with the TA app, AVA, which is the assessment viewing application, or with the remote interim testing site as well. We have interims for elementary, middle school, and high school. Remember that a science interim consists of one cluster. Blueprints for those science interims are also available on the ISAT portal, and we also have answer keys available for those science interims available in Tide. Remember, those are under the General Resources tab, and be sure to keep those answer keys secure. Next up, Idaho Science Specifications. Remember, those are documents that professional test developers use to create those clusters and standalones that are going to be aligned to the Idaho State Science Standards. Be sure to check those out, kind of a peek behind the curtain for how those items are going to be created that appear on the Science ISAT. And then lastly, I want to mention also our plans for Spring 21. For Spring 21, we are going to be having an independent field test. Remember, that means there's no makeup testing for last school year. So participation for this year's 5th, 8th, and 11th graders is required. Because it's an independent field test, we're not going to have any individual student reports or reported scores. However, if everything goes according to plan, for Spring 22, we will have an operational field test, which means we will have ISRs and scores provided after we have our Summer 22 standard setting meeting. Any questions for ISAT Science?
Not at this time.
Excellent. All right, well, I'll throw it over to myself to give an update on ISAT. So to get started, gotten a lot of questions about our plans for Spring 21, so I want to go ahead and knock that out first and foremost. First and foremost, we are going to be having summative testing at this point. Remember, that's going to be required for grades 3 through 8 and 10 for ELA and math. There, just like with science, there is no makeup testing for last year. At this time, the US DOE has not waived any of the requirements, so again, we are planning to have summative testing. And we are working really closely with our testing vendor, Cambium Assessment, in order to develop strategies to safely and effectively conduct summative testing in the spring. Okay, a couple of updates here. First up, the Smarter Balanced homepage has been updated. We can now select our location, and that will take us directly to a page that's tailored for Idaho educators. It provides a link to the assessment portal or the ISAT portal, and also a link to the Idaho State Department of Education website. It also lists out all the different resources that Smarter provides us, including tools for teachers, the interim assessments, sample items, practice tests, and the Smarter Content Explorer. So log on there. I have the URL down at the lower left-hand corner. Select your location as Idaho, and you'll be taken directly to that page. Also want to give out a shout out to the new Smarter Annotated Response Tool, or SMART. That's available also to everyone. It's a new resource where you can log in to find out how those student writings are scored on their Smarter Balance assessments, and also support writing instruction in your school and classroom. This is not only available for ELA, but also for math. Another resource is the Tools for Teachers website. If you have a Cambium Assessment Inc. user group assigned to you, you have access to Tools for Teachers. So log into Tools for Teachers. That gives us the connections playlists, some formative assessment strategies, and also accessibility strategies, not only for in-person learning, but remote learning as well. So be sure to check that out. Speaking of updates to websites, the ISAT portal resources tab has also been updated. We created some new folders and a new organization strategy there to kind of help you more quickly identify the resources that you need there on the ISAT portal. So we also have a resource here that breaks down all the Cambium assessment systems that are available for this particular school year, including TIE, TDS, AVA, and TFT, or Tools for Teachers. That's available on the ISAT portal. It also goes into the hierarchy of all those different user groups that we have available this year, including the new one that we have created, the District Instructional Support, the DIS user role. If you're not familiar with the new DIS role, be sure to check out the FAQ that we have posted on the ISAT portal. That should answer all your questions about the new DIS user role. Never too early to start preparing for testing. If you haven't already, go ahead and upload those students and create those rosters. And then also take that TA certification course to make sure you're available to administer any kind of interim or summatives ISATs. Also want to remind everyone that ORS, or the online reporting system, has gone away. All of the summative and interim performance student data are now housed in reporting. And that's a new system, so we do have some training modules, user guide and quick guide, all posted on the ISAT portal. A couple of frequently asked questions about this new system is, when I first log into reporting, I don't see any assessments. Why is that? Well, probably because students have not taken any kind of assessments for this school year. But no worries, you can go back in time. So how do you go back in time? You go to the My Settings tab that's in the upper right-hand corner, click on that, and then click on Change Reporting Time Period. Now, there's two scenarios that you can look at student performance data when you change that reporting time period. First up is scenario 1. You can select a previous school year. We have student performance data that goes all the way back to the 14-15 school year. So you select a previous school year from that first drop-down, and then you can take a look at current school year rosters by leaving the date set to today's date. That, of course, requires rosters being created and assigned in Tide. The second scenario is if you select that previous school year, again, going all the way back to 14-15, you can then also view past school year rosters as well. And in order to do that, you set the date to the date when that roster was assigned to you. So be sure to check out the change reporting time period functionality in reporting. Just a couple more reminders here. Just like with science, we have sample and training tests available for ELA and math. TAs can log in and start a sample test administration, or a guest user can log in and take a sample test as many times as needed. We also have a quick guide located on the ISAT portal. Can't forget about our interims. We have a whole suite of interims that are available for both ELA and math, including the ICA and the SICA, or the SICA. Remember, the SICA is the one that does not have a performance task, but still does give a scale score in reporting. We have a whole suite of resources that are available to support interim assessment administration, all posted on the ISAT portal and linked here. Be sure to check those out. And then lastly, I want to give a shout out to some new vignettes that we have created for the interim assessments. There are 5 of them. They all last about 5 to 8 minutes, and they have all been posted on the Idaho State Department of Education YouTube page. So be sure to check those out as well. All right, so any ISAT questions?
We do have a few. First is from Lisa Pennington. Do we get scores back on these science interims?
For the science interims, you do get scores back, yes. Each one of the clusters has a couple of scoring assertions that are associated with them. Those scoring assertions break down what the students know and can do, and the score that's reported back is how many scoring assertions they got correct for that particular cluster.
Thank you. And then another one from Lisa. Is the live link now available to the annotation tool?
Yes, this is Elena. The annotation tool is live. The link is not yet embedded in Tools for Teachers, so you'll want to use the direct link in the slide and bookmark that location for now until Smarter Balance gets that embedded into Tools for Teachers.
Thank you both.
All right, good morning. Let's talk a little bit about IRI. Thank you everyone for your patience waiting for that fall data. I hope you'll have an opportunity later today to check it out when it is posted. Some things you need to know regarding iStation. Kindergarten students are going to be administered the alphabetic decoding subtest beginning in January. This is a part of iStation's national norming process. iStation is looking at the possibility of incorporating the alphabetic decoding subtest as a required kindergarten subtest beginning in spring of 2021. So please know that this year's alphabetic decoding subtest for kindergartners will not be included in their overall score, will only be used internally at iStation unless the student has gated into the alphabetic decoding subtest and is ready for that score. Also want to let folks know that automatic scoring is now available for the first grade oral reading fluency subtest. Just a reminder that the ORF subtest is outside of the required IRI tests in the system if you choose to use that. Also, something to know, iStation is working on reskinning the third grade iStation assessment. Beginning in February 2021, you will see posted on the iStation login page an opportunity to be a part of a field study starting in February 2021 and going through May, where districts will have the opportunity to be a part of the reskin study. I've given you on the slide just a preview of what the reskin means. iStation is changing the layout and the background styles of both the login page and the goals page within the assessment. So if this is something your district would like to be a part of and you'd like to be a part of that study, watch online when you log in for information about that opportunity. You can also expect the reskinning to be embedded into the iStation system beginning next fall, 2021. A new report that I want to make you aware of that you'll see in the iStation system is called the At-Risk Report. This is available for grades 1 through 3. It's used to identify students who may be at risk for reading difficulties. What this report does is identify patterns of difficulties by grade level and subtest. You're able as a user to filter the number of risk indicators or look at specific risk indicators once you get into the report. They've grouped the risk report by high, moderate, or low. Please know that this report should be used to guide intervention and instruction, not as a diagnostic assessment. If you have questions about the iStation system, there is a brand new way to get help. If you click on the Get Help green button on the login screen, you'll be able to visit the interactive user guide. You'll see topics such as getting started, best practices, tutorials, help documents, technical information, how to import rosters, how to set goals, and much, much more. So check out the new interactive user guide. I get a lot of questions from folks who are looking for previous year's IRI data. So I wanted to share with you a way that you can access previous year's IRI data all the way back to 2014-15. You simply go to the Assessment Resource Center. Once there, you're going to click on ADEA. You can log in and then extract, access IRI, ISAT, any state assessment data from this system by district or school. I've also linked an FAQ to this page if you have questions about using the ADEA app. Questions for me regarding IRI or iStation?
We do have one, Elena. Lisa Pennington asks, will participation be determined at the district level or will each individual teacher see that option when they log in?
Participation, I assume you're talking about the reskinning, Lisa. That'll be a pop-up that is available and linked on manager user accounts only, so teachers won't see that.
Thank you. And that is all we have for IRI at the moment. Ayaka.
Hi everyone, this is Ayaka. Hope you guys are doing well. The College Board had an overview webinar yesterday, go over SAT, Spring SAT. If you didn't have a chance to participate, I will post the webinar as soon as it becomes available. Wanted to talk about reminders for upcoming deadlines, ACCUPLACER, Court Grad Rate, SAT, and PSAT. So ACCUPLACER, the site manager request form is past due. If you haven't submitted a request using the link available there, please do so as soon as possible. We'll send out training information to the site managers starting in January. And please hold IEP meetings and amend IEPs for any students who would be eligible for ACCUPLACER for graduation requirement purposes. Cohort graduation rate, thank you so much everyone for the work on this. It's a lot. The follow-up window closes this Friday. If you haven't had a chance to review your appeals or haven't submitted your appeals, please your app and 5-year up. College Board is hosting an accommodation webinar on December 15th. If you haven't had a chance to sign up, the link is posted there. And the webinar includes important updates to the SSD online. Please let the SSD coordinator know, although an email was sent to them by the College Board that the webinar is available. Also, this is a really important reminder that SAT, PSAT invoice cleanup process is due December 16th. It's available in TOS, and we'd like you to review and correct the grade level. In TOS, the state will only pay for PSAT for sophomores and SAT for seniors for the fall. If anyone that's off grade, the invoice will be sent to your school in mid-January. The Spring SAT offsite request is due December 18th. If you are planning to use offsite locations, post the Spring SAT, please submit offsite request form to College Board so they can go through the application process with you guys. Any questions?
I don't see any college entrance questions at this time.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so as always, our next webinar will be at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Wednesday, January 13th. The link to sign up is right there, or you can go to the Assessment and Accountability Resource Center. We will stay on the line for just a bit longer for any final questions. It does look like we have an ISAT question, though, for Elena and Chandler. On the SDE assessment calendar, the IDAA science window still shows end date May 14th. Was this window not extended with the other ISAT windows?
Yes, so the IDAA window was also extended with the ISAT, so we'll make sure to get that updated on the SDE webpage.
Thank you. And like I said, we'll stay on for just a little bit longer if anybody has any last-minute questions. ISAT question again from Dave Harrison. Are there any updates to speech-to-text changes on ISAT?
Sure. Hi, Dave. This is Elena. I can speak to that. So speech-to-text on ISAT will remain this spring as it has in previous years as a non-embedded support. And we at the department will be coordinating with our vendor and working with them to potentially bring speech-to-text into our ISAT for interims and summatives in the 2020-2021 school year.
Great. Thank you, Elena. And that looks like that is it. As always, we will have this webinar up in about 10 days with the questions and the slides again. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a wonderful day.